Hello and welcome back to Management Snippets. This time over, we are taking up a subject which is called the blind spots in organizations. So, what are these blind spots? If you are, driving, and then if you are driving cars, you know what is a blind spot, right? There are spots which you cannot see in any of the rear view mirrors. You have in a car, typically you have a rear view mirror in the middle above your head on the side by on the middle of the car, which is one rear view mirror, and then you have two rear view mirrors on either side of the car, right? So some things are visible in the middle mirror, and some things are visible in the two side rear view mirrors, respectively. But there are places on either side of the car which are not visible in any of these mirrors. That is called a blind spot. Okay. So, taking cognizance of this fact to organizations, let us see what is a blind spot in organization. In fact, there are many blind spots. So there is something called a strategic blind spot. We must have we must have heard about, at one point of time there was a company called, Research in Motion, RIM, which is a Canadian company, which used to make this BlackBerry. BlackBerry was a market leader, rather a numero uno company in uh, phones. It was not a smartphone, but just before the invent of the smartphone, there used to be something called BlackBerry. Before that, we had the monopoly of Nokia, the mobile phones. So BlackBerry came and then it killed most of the luxury market of Nokia. The high-end market of Nokia was killed by BlackBerry, which was a very good phone with some unique features, like the typing in and some of the some artificial intelligence features in that phone. And it had captured all the luxury market. The high-end phone market was captured by Research in Motion, and then suddenly something called the smartphone came, and the rest is, as they say, it is rest is history. Wherein BlackBerry is not to be seen anymore. The company we don't even remember. So we do remember the companies like Apple now for iPhones. We have Samsung. There are companies Chinese, lot of Chinese companies which come up with cheap smartphones, which is flooding the market. So this is something the Research in Motion, the Canadian company, had a strategic blind spot, which they did not see what is coming. Same was true with Nokia, which could not see what is coming in the form of BlackBerry. And who knows what is their the blind spot that presently the companies like Apple or Samsung would be facing, rather which they are not aware of. And maybe 5 years down the lane, something new would come up in the market, which would diminish or make these companies uh, irrelevant at all. So this is what is called a strategic blind spot, wherein the companies won't see a disruption coming, and disruptive technology coming, disruptive company coming up, a disruptive feature coming up. So this is called a strategic blind spot, which for which there is no ready-made solution. Only solution is that the companies should keep their ears, eyes, and all the sensory organs open so that they see what is coming. They can pre-up all these, disruptive technologies or disruptive features that would come in the market. The second blind spot which companies face is the communication blind spot. So you must have heard about, in 1857, there was a mutiny in India against the British. That was the start of the Indian independence struggle. This mutiny started with something called, the grease that the British forces used to uh, use in their guns. And these guns were used by Indian sipais also, which were, working under the British Army, working in the British Army. But these greases were used, what they were used to was cows, from the cow's body. That is, it was a byproduct of the the cow meat. So, as we all know, that cow meat, especially in the northern belt of India, is considered to be, the cow is considered to be a sacred animal, and then it's a emotional distress to people to use something that comes from the cow meat to be used with their hands and to be used at all. So this was the genesis of the mutiny that happened in 1857, which ultimately resulted in India's independence. So you see where it started and where it ended. So this is the communication blind spot wherein people are not aware of what is being, people are not aware of the emotional conditions of the others, especially when coming to organizations. There could be some, the cultural nuances of employees, especially in India, wherein we have so many cultures, right? Each state has a culture, each religion has a culture, each caste has a culture. So, unless an organization takes into cognizance of all these cultural nuances and try to incorporate and try to understand what is happening in the workforce, in the staff, and even with the customers. So, these are all cultural nuances which people have to take in consideration, especially, recently there was controversy with a Zomato delivery boy. He was delivering a vegetarian item to a Jain customer who raised objection to a delivery boy coming from the minority community delivering his food. So this was created a big furor in India, wherein how can the object this? But the Jain gentleman had his own justifications because it was his sacred month going on, and then he said that he could not take any chances. But uh, controversies apart, this is an example of how, especially if Zomato or Swiggy or whoever would take some of the cultural nuances into consideration so that they can avoid controversies. I'm not getting into the I'm not justifying anybody either side. I'm not trying to side with anyone. But this is an example of how companies can take cultural nuances into consideration so that they can preempt these communication blind spots. And there could be financial blind spots wherein a company which is heavily debt-ridden doesn't know what is coming because when the business is going and it's fully of debt, the debt-equity ratio is high. So the company has to be very cautious when trading that path because the debt can kill the company because banks can take away, confiscate the company assets. And it has been there has been umpteen cases in India wherein we have seen companies getting into the board of financial reconciliation (BIFR) being labeled as a sick company. All just because the finances are not being managed well. They're not aware of what is coming when they were taking high debts from banks, and then banks come and chase them for these loans. And there could be other types of communication strategies also. For example, there could be some operation-related blind spots wherein companies are not company typically uh, commits a certain delivery period to customer, and then we're not aware of the operational hiccups that could come while executing a job. For example, some machinery which, the machinery breakdowns or even the routine problems which could come from the machinery by not having analyzed the data of machinery or rather the pattern of machinery breakdowns. So these are all operational blind spots which companies can arrest if they do the due diligence. Similar thing is the capacity blind spot also. When you have a factory and then you think that you can make these many things as an output, uh, but when the order actually comes for execution, you surprisingly, or rather a bad surprise, that you find out the hard way that the capacity is only on the paper, but when it comes to reality, the capacity is much lower. This has happened at many places. So this is because the capacity blind spot, wherein you are going by what is written in black and white without seeing the realities. Because when there is a lot of machines which needs to work in tandem. If one machine breaks down, it has got a cascading effect on the other machines, which should be taken into consideration when we actually calculate the capacity of the factory as a whole. So these are all some of the blind spot spots that organizations face, which a good manager, a good leader, a good CEO should be addressing so that these blind spots are preempted and then it does not happen that the organizations have to learn it the hard way. Thank you for listening this episode and please subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much.